The gift that keeps on giving. One thing I love about social media, and I also love this about education, is both seem to be the gift that keeps on giving. So I had posted a video on August 1st, and it was about how religion has been used to manipulate women, and that religion has been used to train women to be more docile and submissive, and to cater to men. And this has not been often in the best interest of women. And again, religion has also sometimes been used to, quote, humble women, and to make them feel like, okay, you're the reason that everything goes wrong. You know, you created sin in the world, and so you don't need to be in a position of leadership. You don't need to, when you took leadership, you, in a sense, stole it from the man, and that's created all these problems. So you need to take a back seat, let the man shine, let him lead, and so on and so forth. And the video is about how toxic a view that is, and how basically looking at the King James Version is one version of the Bible. It's not the original version of the Bible. And many scriptures have been written in such a way in versions that they probably weren't intended to be written in the original. If you look back at some of the words, the word choices, the original language, and so on and so forth, it doesn't actually mean the same thing at all. So it kind of makes you think about who translated the Bible. King James was not known for being a person of great character, and why they translated it in the way that they translated it. But when I say the gift that keeps on giving, I'm bringing that up because even though I had posted this video August 1st, a guy commented on it today, and he said, when did loving someone become so terrible, so horrible? When did loving someone take this turn? And it was an interesting comment to me. And it always is interesting to me when people say this. They say things as if love or relationships have just recently become problematic. But that's not the case. If you know history, if you pay attention to the news, to statistics, to just how things are in the world, it's hard for me to understand how you can act, how a person can act as if relationships just suddenly became problematic, like yesterday or last week or last year or 5 years ago or this generation. That makes no sense to me. And it's the same view that people have when they say, oh, why can't our relationships last like grandmama and granddad's relationship? This rose-colored glass scenario, it's not realistic. It's not logical. It's not wise, and it doesn't make any sense. So I said, love has always been problematic. First off, prior to the 1600s, there were many types of love in the Greek culture. When you go back in ancient times, you had eros, erotic love. You had phileo, brotherly love. You had unconditional love, agape love. You had the love of learning. You had all of these different types of learning. What you did not have, though, was really an idea of romantic love, because erotic love and romantic love are two different things. Two different things. So when we go back in history, prior to patriarchy, when you're talking about villages and tribes, People married often because they wanted to join two family lines. They wanted partnership. They wanted to have children. There was not necessarily an idea of, quote, love. They looked at, and a lot of times there was matchmaking. An elder in your family, in your village, looked at your family, looked at his family, and said, this would make a great match. And nobody necessarily cared about whether you guys had feelings for each other at all. It wasn't even a thought. The thought was that the feelings would come by you already being married and getting to know each other and having a shared bond, a shared purpose, a shared life. That feelings of fondness, feelings of trust, feelings of bonding would come. But the word love, no, that was not something that was a priority. So when love was really, in a sense, created, it was created by, many scholars say, the knights. Now the knights in Europe, they had titles, but often they had no money. They had nothing but their intelligence, their wit, their image, and they had no real life to give a woman. They had no land. They didn't have a secure paycheck, as we would say. They didn't even know from one battle to the next if they were going to live. So they would write women these wonderful poems, and they would seduce women with romance, with feelings of being special, feelings of being flattered and put on a pedestal and, love bombed. And it was really so that these women would get so caught up in the feelings that they would forget that he really didn't have anything that another man of wealth or prestige or stability might have to offer her. She would get caught up in the feelings and operate against her best interests. And so love has always been problematic. From the very beginning, it was created as a tool to manipulate people into operating against their best interests. Romantic love is what I'm talking about. So it didn't just become this way. It's always been this way. And then the same thing with when I said education is a gift that keeps on giving. When you are educated and you know things, that gift keeps on giving. And when you are uneducated or you haven't made certain connections, you haven't looked at history, you haven't looked at sociology, psychology, anthropology, biology, all these different things, science, and so forth. You haven't looked at these things and made some connections. It's the deficit that keeps on giving. Because we have people who voted for a certain leader and they didn't even understand what they were voting for because they got so caught up in loving him, in loving the things that he was saying that tickled their ears, in feeling special, in feeling understood, in feeling like they were being put on a pedestal and their wants and needs were important to him. So they got caught up in the love and they operated against their best interest. But had they been caught up in education, had they been caught up in history, had they been caught up in realism, they wouldn't be seduced by love of rhetoric, love of a few cleverly designed phrases or ads, or a few nice little gifts in the case of romantic love, a few nice outings, a few nice compliments. And so when I told the guy, love has always been problematic, and not having education has always been problematic. And these things didn't change, recently. They've always been this way. But when people think that things are a certain way because they haven't really delved into reality, they've looked at the surface of things. On the surface, mom and dad stay together. On the surface, grandma and grandpa stay together. But what was that relationship really like? Was it full of lies and cheating and disrespect and abuse? And is that really the kind of relationship that we want to last? And is stability in that kind of relationship a good thing? Or is it a thing that actually destroys people and kills people from the inside out? So let's have a little more substance to what we talk about and what we think about, and look at things not from just the perspective of the shallow end of the pool, but the deep end of the pool. Let's get a little deeper. May you walk in Zennurgy. The gift that keeps on giving.